Welcome everyone to this episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio. I'm Tim Grady and I'm here with my co-host Lou Weiss, who's also president of All Metals and Forge Group. And if you're looking for industrial forgings or custom forge shapes, check out steelforge.com. Joining us every month is Norbert, who is our senior correspondent for global surveys, where he checks the Purchasing Managers Index for major countries around the world. Norbert, thanks for joining us again from your location in West Virginia at the moment.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you, and we're having a really great day here in West Virginia.
What does it take to make a great day in West Virginia?
Hey, it's a good opportunity to see what the real world's all about.
Gotcha. Okay. You're here. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So Norbert, and I were looking at your scatter plot, which we look at every month, and we wait it anxiously. But it looks like the flock of starlings are leaving town. Your analogy to a flock of birds is a good one in my opinion, because you can tell which way the flock is going based on what the scatter plot does. For those who haven't seen the actual chart itself, basically, if a PMI if one of the 18 that we follow closely is above 50, then it's either going to be showing as above 50 and strengthening, or weakening, or it could be the same, unchanged for that. So it shows which way the flock of geese are moving, and certainly in this 4-quadrant analysis, things have moved to very definitely. Still, we see things expanding, but we also see that they're weakening in their intensity as they expand. And so it's a real good indicator. I think back in May, we said, long before others were saying that we were peaked, we said based on this data, we saw a shift in the direction, and we hit the peak for this particular cycle for manufacturing. So Norbert, what's causing the shift? Why are things expanding but weakening?
Well, the easy answer is because that's what it's supposed to do. The difficult answer is we have all these different countries globally. Some are expanding more rapidly than others. Right now, the Eurozone, 8 countries, led by Germany, are quite strong, and look to continue to be that way. And so that all of their indexes are above 55 predominantly, and they will continue to strengthen. The US has strong readings in many of the surveys, the ISM surveys and other surveys to do that. Then the Asia is one that is showing up more, not so much weakness as just lack of strong growth. There is a little bit of growth depending on the countries. Japan, South Korea, in particular, are doing just fine, but it's not anywhere near the kind of growth that we're seeing in the Eurozone and the USA.
What I find interesting in this particular report, aside from the fact that the flock is heading, that way, meaning they are beginning to consolidate, not expanding as much as they were. There are two countries, however, that are truly compacting and weakening, and that's Mexico and China. So, aside from Mexico, which we don't really know a lot about, other than half the population is sitting on the border. The point that I'm bringing up China is that, it's conceivable that the downturn and compacting of what's going on in China is going to have a significant impact on the global economy. In that, as you know, there are problems with shipping, containers and ships. They don't have any ships going back to China. They empty here. They're supposed to go back. So there's not a whole lot of business coming back from China in terms of product. This could only add to the apparent program that China is on, is that I think that they would like to be able to do less and less business with the United States, build their Silk Road, and create their own market on the European, Asian part of the world. And they'll take the hit for now, but we could find ourselves in a difficult situation. There's certain products that we can only get from China. Any thoughts on that, Norbert?
Yeah, I think that's a really good area to try to understand a little bit better from that. As I have said in the past in our conversations, the most important things from a purchasing manager's or a supply chain manager standpoint, the most important thing is continuity of supply. And then you go to quality, and then you go to price. And I think we're at the point where both the US and China have proven to each other that they're not credible sources of continuous supply.
Right.
And,
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And so that's what we're seeing now is China saying, hey, we thought it was a great idea to do more business with the U.S., and we took advantage of them as long as they were stupid enough to allow us to do it. Now they're saying, okay, we're standing on our own 2 feet. We've got the know-how to produce a lot of products globally. We've got the politics that we're outpacing the U.S. and Europe in terms of the political battle that has to be fought with all of this, and so we're ready to go, and we're benefiting from it. The U.S. is sitting and saying, okay, we've got to bring more manufacturing back to the U.S. Well, that's easy said and hard to do. You have capital investment in place that you just can't walk away from necessarily. You have the legalities that we have to deal with in terms of patents, et cetera. So we really, we're getting along with China about like it's kind of like a slow waiter and a poor tipper. And we are this, we just keep reversing roles with China as to whether we're leading in that effort or they're leading in that effort. So we've proven to each other that we're not really good suppliers. And so the natural tendency is if it's not really good business, that you eventually replace those suppliers and put it in a location where it is good business.
Well, that's one of the reasons why China is rebuilding the ancient Silk Road. And number two, the fact that they're so heavily involved in, financially involved in Africa. So, they are, and we're being excluded from all of this by our own design. By our own design, we allow this to continue. We've done nothing about it to be in the world club in terms of what's going on financially and manufacturing wise on a global basis.
Well, it's a whole lot easier with their political system to
Sure.
establish a direction and maintain that direction or change direction. Our political system is chaos personified, at least right now.
Norbert, one of the things that I've been watching, and I'm hearing rumblings of people who are beginning to be on the page that I'm on, and that's inflation being not only here to stay, but a future serious problem for the economy. In the survey and the people you talk to, is there concern over the current rate of inflation?
Yes, very definitely. The Fed promised everyone that this was a transitory inflationary period and we would get through it and it wouldn't be a problem. You'll remember our discussion several months ago. My concern about inflation is when it gets into wages. Because it's hard to get it back out because, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we had periods of time where the unions would negotiate cost of living raises and ideally from their standpoint, if they wound up with raises that were contractually included. In other words, we get 3% this year, 3% next year, 3% the year after that, or 5% or whatever the number is. But what it does is guarantee them increases not tied to productivity. It doesn't say if the union will do this and this, then we'll give out pay increases. And so it throws the whole system out of whack in terms of compensation. And that scares me. And then the other thing that we have to look at is employment. It's amazing. There are so many good jobs available. This week I drove from Atlanta through Tennessee into Kentucky and then West Virginia. All I saw was help wanted signs from the tractor trailers that were on the highway to every food stop along the way and gas stop. People had signs out looking for employees because they can't find people to work. Well, there's people out there, it's just they're choosing not to work because the government has given them a better deal in their mind than what they were getting from working. So they're just saying, I'm going to enjoy this while I can. I don't have to work for this period of time. I'm staying away from it. So when we have employment situation like this, in many cases, the people that are going back to work, if they were at $11 an hour and they're going back to work at 15, if they're not adding additional productivity, then those are additional costs that are inflationary.
Excuse me, Norbert. I realize you're working from a different location than normal. Your hand is waving in front of the camera, and we want to see. Everybody wants to see who they're talking to. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Norbert, I think I've read recently where wage growth in 2021 has been about 5%. Inflation so far this year is 5.4%. So wages are not keeping up with inflation. And if this continues, even going back to work becomes unappealing because we all see price rises pretty significantly in housing, automobiles, food, everything that we need. It's a concern that I think is here to stay, and in fact, could put the economy on a precipice, and not a good.
Yeah, and the thing is, Tim, the government makes the rules on how we play this game. And the first thing they do is they say, okay, we don't include food or energy.
Right.
So if you want to keep the inflation, if you want to keep the inflation rate artificially low, the best way to do it is don't include food or energy, because those are the two most volatile things that they have to deal with.
Yes, and the other issue they've got is they have an extraordinarily low Fed funds rate. If they raise the interest rate, they raise it against themselves, and servicing the national debt becomes almost unachievable. If they raise it 1.5 points, they'll look at an additional expense in the national debt of over $1 trillion. So
makes no difference. Makes no difference. The debt's never going to be paid off.
But
that'll
they
be written on my tombstone. That'll be written on my tombstone.
And Lou, you said it never will be paid off. You're probably right, but I would qualify that by saying that the only way it has ever been paid off is through inflation.
So be it.
Yeah, that is an interesting conundrum. So where to from here, Norbert? Are we beginning to see an economy that's just softening and may come in Q3, Q4 at 3% GDP? Or are we looking at something more tenuous?
The exact numbers are kind of hard to get at in doing that, but philosophically, we're talking more about adding to our debt than we are dealing with our debt. And Congress historically just doesn't have any the nerve that it takes to be able to improve or reduce the national debt. They get no glory for doing that. They don't get any of the constituencies that are happy about that. And we've got so many issues right now that are, historically you could go back and say, what are the top three issues of that time, of that period of time? Was it inflation? Was it immigration? What were the top three? The problem we have right now is the top three are probably the top 13. And we've just got so many issues going in the wrong direction right now that I don't think we're going to do battle well with any of them.
He's a man after my own heart.
Well, that could well be, and it will be interesting to see, because everybody's predicted that 2021 will finish strong. We'll probably do 3 point something for the year. I think we'll actually do a little better than that for GDP growth. I'm completely unsure about 2022.
As well, you should be. Because there are a lot of people who are so-called economists, and your opinion is equally as valuable as theirs. And we're not going to find our way out of this very easily. I think you're going to see a softening in the fourth quarter that'll show up when we see what's going on in the first quarter.
Yeah, I don't think we're headed for recession in 2022, just not strong GDP growth.
Right. And nothing that sets the stage for beyond 2022. The people that we have that are making many of these decisions just really don't have a clue other than they want what they want.
Yeah, that that won't play out well for we the people.
Right.
So Norbert, sum it up for us as we approach the end of this particular episode.
Well, again, I think the big issue is the number of critical issues that we have to deal with, and whether it's inflation, whether it's the employment picture, whether it's trade, whether it's logistics. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday that said that they have connections to people who do business with Europe, and said just not going to get the growth in Europe consistently going forward. The United States is going to struggle the same way. Asia has got to come back. Korea, Taiwan seems to be holding its own. All the others are marginal at best in what they're doing. And politically, we're weakened with we're weakened politically with the aggressive nature the Chinese are in right now, wanting to test this administration to see if they've got guts enough to deal with the aggression that we see, whether it's aggression in trade or aggression militarily, whatever. So it's only going to get tougher. I think the challenge is going to be huge for the American business, because they're going to have to do things in spite of what the government is able to accomplish, if they can accomplish anything.
Lou, what's your sense of it going forward?
It depends on how much time you have left. It could be great, it could be bad. I find this topic, and I guess that's why we do the things that we do, Tim, with the podcasts and the video podcasts and so on. I find it extremely interesting. And what I also find interesting is that in talking to people like Norbert and ourselves and others, that there's a lot smarter people out there than the ones that we got in the front office. Because there are ways to think about and see and collaborate for perhaps solutions that the voted population doesn't know what they're doing.
I would agree. I call them our elected misrepresentatives.
That's a good name. That's a good name.
So I agree. They don't know what they're doing. They're more pundits and politicians than they are professional performers, and will have to look to the private sector for a lot of these solutions. And Norbert, we appreciate your insights into what's happening to economies around the world, because that kind of tells us who the leaders are. And in manufacturing, we know leads the economy, either in or out. So we look forward to your report next month and see if we can encourage the starlings to go back over to expanding and strengthening.
Let's hope that's the outcome that we wind up with.
Okay, Norbert, you have a good month, healthy month, and we'll talk to you in a month and see where September's going to wind up in terms of the final numbers. So thank you very much for joining us.
Very good. Glad to be with you. Bye-bye.
And that's this episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio. We encourage all of our viewers and listeners to go to jacketmediaco.com where you can see the Wham podcast, Hazard Girl, Cliff Notes with Cliff Waldman, and Manufacturing Partnerships Making Waves. Always new episodes going up every day at that particular website, jacketmediaco.com. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio.